Hey everyone, I'm so glad you can join me today. Today I'm going to talk about Fresco chocolate out of Washington State, very near Seattle, a little town called Lynden, just north of Seattle. So it was started in 2010, and it is owned and run by Rob and Amy Anderson. They are a husband and wife team, and for them, chocolate making started off as a hobby. When they decided to turn it into a business, Rob had another job. He actually still has another job. And Rob and Amy had 4 kids living at home. They had school, they had other activities. If you have teenagers or older kids, even younger kids, all kids, it takes a lot of time, driving to and from school and activities and everything that you get involved in. So it started off as a hobby. So let's do a little bit of background, how we got to moving from hobby to business. So Rob has a background, a degree in electrical engineering, computer science, and he started off working in tech, and he still works in that area. He's in the management area now of it, though. He started when the internet was just taking off. So he was on the ground floor when the internet networking really started getting going in the 1990s. In 2003, he was taking a trip to California, and he went on a tour of Scharfenberger chocolate, which is where I can name a handful of chocolate makers that were inspired by Scharfenberger. I can name a lot of chocolate makers actually that were inspired by Scharfenberger chocolate. He went to the factory tour. He saw them that day. They were roasting and grinding, and he saw that, and something just clicked for him. And so over the next several years, he took a few trips back, just kind of reconning things and figuring things out and learning. When they got started in 2010, there wasn't a super lot of information out there. There wasn't a super lot of makers out there. So a lot of research on his own. Because their life was so busy with family and work and everything else, they decided that as they shifted from a hobby to a business, that they were going to take it slow, and they were going to do it by remaining debt-free. They were going to self-fund it, and they went from there. So it's always lucky. If you start a chocolate business, you have someone who knows their way around equipment. Because if you're a chocolate maker, you know that equipment breaks, equipment needs to be fixed, equipment demands a lot of time. And so Rob actually designed and created a lot of the equipment that they use, because when they started, it just wasn't, there was no small batch equipment available. It just wasn't available at the time. And so he designed a lot of it. So now the business, the day-to-day operations are run by Amy. And Rob, who still, like I said, has another full-time job, he uses his engineering mindset to develop recipes and to make the chocolate. And we'll talk a little bit about that, because you'll see it. You see his thinking is right out there on the wrapper. So I've got these 3 bars of his. They're one origin, but he's just changed. It's a very scientific approach to chocolate making. So he's just changed a variable amongst them. So this one is dark roast, 70%, same origin. This one is medium roast, 70%, same origin. And this one is light roast, 70%. And they're all, so you can see right here, light roast, long conch, and then he's got the recipe number too. So it's a very scientific engineering approach, where he's changing one variable at a time so he can tell what the result, he can have more of a causal relationship. They have 4 kids, and all 4 kids have at some time worked with them in the chocolate making business. So let's turn the camera around and look at the bars, and I'll talk a few more things about the wrappers and some awards that they've won and more about the origin. So let's flip the camera around. All right. So let's talk about the wrappers. So I believe this is the 5th wrapper design that they've released. Rob also does all the design of the wrappers, and I think this is the 5th gen, but I could be wrong on that. So let's see. So the name Fresco is Italian for fresh, and they chose that because it is a fresh taste. They have fresh ideas, a fresh approach to making chocolate. They try to always get a few exceptional ingredients to bring out the best character. So if you were to look at their ingredient list here on the back, let's see if I can get it to focus. It's cocoa beans, cane sugar, and cocoa butter. So when you have only 2 or 3 ingredients, the ingredients that go in make a big difference. So you want to have good quality ingredients. I want to point this out on the back too, that their chocolate is dairy-free, gluten-free, nut-free, and soy-free. It's not certified organic, but a lot of times it is pretty much organic. The farmers use organic methods but aren't actually certified. So they're not certified organic, but it is close. Okay, so I'm going to pronounce this wrong. I think it's pronounced Polochic. It's in Guatemala. This is where they're getting the beans from. It is a place where indigenous Mayans have settled for years. It's a highland area of Guatemala that has this kind of hot microclimate. So that contributes to the fermentation of the beans. The farmers actually in the area organized in 2003, and they were selling coffee and I think honey too before they started selling cacao. So the things that bring in the flavor here for these beans are the genetics. They're small yellow pods and small beans, so they have a different kind of genetics going on. They have the hot microclimate also affects the fermentation process of the beans. So Fresco is buying them after they're fermented, so that comes into it as well. And then you have the experimenting that Rob is doing with the beans as well. So if you can look across, so he's got 3 recipes here, 3 different recipes, and each one is doing just a different roast. So same percentage of cacao beans, same conch, so it's long conch, whatever that means. I don't know how long is, but he knows, so he's keeping track of that. And so the only thing that's changing between these bars is the roasting time, a light roast, a medium roast, or a dark roast. And you'll notice that all 3 of these bars are award-winning bars, and they've just won a bunch of new awards from the Academy of Chocolate. They just announced their 2020 awards, and Fresco won a bunch for I believe they won for Ghana and Madagascar, and there was another one in there, but I'm forgetting it. So I'm going to open these ones today, see if we can see a color difference or any visual differences, because I know you guys can. If you have these chocolates, you can taste with me, but I also have this one, the Acumare from Venezuela, which is a limited edition bar of theirs. It's kind of hard to get beans. It's been difficult to get beans out of Venezuela in recent years, so that's probably a quantity issue why it's a limited edition. But I'm not going to open that one today. We're going to open these 3. So let's see what else I want to talk about on these bars. Okay. So he's got the recipe number, the percentage of cacao, light roast, long conch. He's got the batch number, an expiration date. They're out of Lynden, Washington. We're not going to look at tasting notes, no cheating. Okay, so it talks a little bit about conching. And then we have, again, just the 3 ingredient bar. They do add cocoa butter, so that'll give it a nice mouth feel. So let's open them up and see what we can see here. Oh, okay. So talks about good chocolate, tasting instructions, important. Here we go. So he defines, this is very engineering science. You got to define your terms so everybody knows, everybody's talking about the same thing. So he defines light, medium, and dark, and then he defines his conching. So none, subtle, medium, and long. All right, so let me make sure I keep these in order so I don't mix them up. So I know what I'm tasting here. Okay, that's the light. Let's do the medium. There's the medium. And here's the dark. Okay. And there are people who have personal preferences, and even like whole cultures who have personal preferences between dark roasted things and not dark roasted. So let's take a look at these bars. Nice bar. I like their molds. There was just a discussion online whether you should have a bar that is sectioned or not, whether that makes a difference. Let me bring the light over a little bit closer so we can see if there's a color difference here. So to me, right away, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of color difference between the 3. They look pretty close to the same. Can we see a difference? I don't think so. Okay, so I'm going to start. What I'm going to do is I'll check the aroma of each of them. They look really nice. I mean, they're nicely tempered bar. Got a little bit of shine to them. No tempering issues. You can hear it. They all had really good snap. Here's the snap for you. Nice snap to them. So they look like they're really, he's got the technical aspect down, not surprising. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just rub my thumb on the back of them, warm up the cocoa butter, release some of those volatile compounds, and get the aroma, and then we'll taste. So let's give that a try. All right, so this is a fun experiment to do if you ever have a tasting party with your friends or you just want to do it on your own. I'd write myself tasting notes because there was no way I was going to remember the differences, because sometimes they're subtle and sometimes they're not. So for me, the most difference I had was from going to medium to dark roast. These two were not a whole lot different. So with this one, with the light roast, I had an aroma of jam and cocoa. I had a nice mouthfeel, nice smooth melt that comes from the long conch. Gives you that nice particle size. And the grinding. With this one, the sweetness is the first thing that comes through for me. A honey, a caramel, slight nuttiness. And near the end, I get a jammy note, a jammy red fruit kind of note. And a little bit of a bitter finish with the light roast. With the medium roast, again, I just smelled a sweetness and cocoa, so like a honey or a caramel note. But when I tasted it, the sweet again was the first note that I got, the honey note. And I got a red fruit note, but it started sooner. So it started earlier than the light roast. It lingered longer than the light roast. And it almost increased as you went along. This one had, for me, no bitterness on the finish. I should look at the tasting notes. Red fruit and caramel, mellow flavor, earthiness. I don't know that I got any earthiness. What about this one? This one is strawberry jam, deep red fruit. Oh, I didn't get the deep red fruit and caramel. Definitely got sweet. Cocoa graham cracker. Didn't get graham cracker. For this one, I actually think this is the one that I like the best, the dark roast. It had, again, a nice smooth melt, nice mouthfeel to it. Not as overall sweet as the other two. So sweet wasn't really the dominant tasting note for me. What came through in this one for me was a really strong dried fruit note, kind of an acidic tart, and it was there almost right away and persistent the whole way through as it melted. And at the end, I got almost a coffee, earthy finish on that one, but not, again with this one, no bitterness for me at the end in the finish. Let's see what the tasting notes said. Black currant and fig, and mocha and caramel notes. Okay, so I didn't get the sweet. This one for me tasted much less sweet than the other two, and this one really brought out the fruitiness of the cocoa beans for me. So that was a fun experiment to do. And Rob, if you watch online, Rob, they will sometimes offer online tastings where they do this series of experiments. I recently did an online tasting with them where they had different conch levels, different roasting levels, and mixed them all up so they could figure out what was the best flavored cacao for those beans. All right, so I'm going to flip the camera around and we'll finish up. Okay, so that was a fun experiment that we got to do. And you can do this on your own. You can order those bars online at Fresco Chocolate. So I don't really have anything else to tell you about Fresco. I'll finish with a modified Thomas Edison quote that Rob likes. I haven't failed. I have just found 100 ways how not to make chocolate. So embrace your experimentation and failure like he has, and enjoy experimenting as you taste with their bars. They have some unique flavored bars and some fun experimentation that you can have at home with them. So that's Fresco Chocolate. Next week we'll talk about another chocolate maker. If there's someone you want me to feature or something you want to talk about, make sure to comment below. And if you like these videos, subscribe and like the video, and we will see you next week when we get together to talk about chocolate more.